Our next speaker, and I can really put her on the spot, you know, when you invite a think tank, you expect from them to break some china in the room. Because since we came up with the concept of sustainable development, social development remains the weakest pillar out of the three. The economic side, the environmental side grew since 1992 in terms of influence and advocacy and allocation of resources. This is one pillar which is within governments, is not strong in terms of influence, financial decisions, economic decisions, and globally also. We need to make sure the second summit on social development gives social development the pedestal it deserves in national policy making. Social outcomes should not be an afterthought. They should be central objectives of economic and financial policies. And that's where, and she's an activist also, Ms. Magdalena Carmona, who is the recently appointed director of UN Research Institute on Social Development, to give us bold and new ideas. How do we bring social outcomes at the center of policy making, globally and nationally? Ms. Carmona, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. UNRISD, as the only UN institution dedicated to researching social dimension of development, is uniquely positioned to provide support to the preparation of the World Social Summit. UNRISD played already a very important role in 1995, and we are ready to continue to provide strong support to have a successful outcome of this second summit. As part of the work that we have been doing, we have developed global and regional consultation aimed to gather diverse perspective on pressing social development challenges and actionable solution. So I'm going to start by briefly describing the outcome of these consultations. I have to say that UNRISD has over 60 years of cutting-edge policy applied research and a network of 20,000 experts. And with this, we have our capacity to convene stakeholders and shape evidence-based solutions. So let me first very briefly refer to the outcome of our global consultation. The total number of respondents as to February, the 6th of February, was 520 participants. It was near gender parity with 51% of women. And regarding the sectorial representation, was 1/3 from academia and research, 1/3 from civil society organization, and 1/3 from government, UN agencies, and private sector. So what were these key challenges that this global consultation identified? First, and you have heard this from previous panelists, inequality. Persistent inequalities in wealth, income, and access to resources, according to the participants, remain a dominant challenge, with marginalized groups disproportionately affected. The second challenge was governance and political stability. Again, this has already been highlighted. Participants emphasized the need for more transparent and accountable institutions, as weak governance exacerbates social and economic challenges. Corruption and ineffective policies were identified as significant obstacles to progress. Third, climate change and environmental sustainability. Environmental degradation, including climate change and biodiversity loss, was widely recognized as a cross-cutting issue affecting livelihood, health, and equity. Fourth, employment and decent work. The lack of decent work opportunities, widespread informality, and job insecurity were highlighted as barriers to social inclusion and economic stability. And finally, poverty and social exclusion, in particular in rural areas and informal economies. The global survey also identified 5 policy demands. These were accountable and inclusive governance, universal social protection, education and youth empowerment, particularly those that equip youth with the skills for emerging economic sector and the future world of work, was highlighted as essential for long-term development, climate resilience and sustainability, and equitable economic system. We've also carried out 4 regional consultations, and I am delighted to provide some of the complete briefing outcomes that are available at the entrance. These consultations were in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the ones that we have the access to the information now. In Africa, informality, lack of social protection and labor rights, youth unemployment, gender inequality, and climate change were considered the major challenges. In Asia, the regional consultation identified that the region faced significant structural challenges, including a digital divide, aging population, and climate-related risk. In Latin America and the Caribbean region, again, informality was highlighted in the consultation as structural inequalities, backlash against progressive policies, weakened democratic governance, and climate change risk were those challenges most identified. Now, from the point of view of our research, we consider that the political declaration should include the following areas. First, extending the coverage and mobilizing resources towards universal, rights-based social protection systems to ensure access to adequate income across the life cycle and social assistance benefits for marginalized groups, include informal workers and migrants, as well as access to essential services like health, education, and care. Regarding gender justice, we also consider that the political declaration should recognize the need to implement care economy reforms to recognize, reduce, and redistribute unpaid care work, including the expansion of child care services and support to caregivers. It is also important to recognize the need to have a gender-focused climate resilience, as climate change is disproportionately impacting women and girls. It is also clear from our research that there is the need to recognize the transition to inclusive and sustainable economic system that prioritize well-being, caregiving, and community support over extractive practices. We need to foster innovative framework for community-driven cooperatives and sustainable production systems that prioritize equity and environmental health. We need to move beyond GDP as the sole indicator of success, focusing instead on measures like well-being, equity, and environmental sustainability. It is also important to address the issues of just transition. The political declaration should include a commitment by states to identify pathways to a future independent of fossil fuel production, ensuring that the just transition do not exacerbate inequalities and that the cost and benefits are fairly distributed. Finally, it will also be important to recognize the need for multilateral action. Multilateral systems are vital for addressing global challenges such as inequality, environmental crisis, and instability. International cooperation must foster solidarity, equitable resource sharing, and coordinated policy action to accelerate the transformations at all levels. Finally, let me conclude by stressing that the political declaration should contain concrete follow-up mechanism, including post-summit regular meetings, data collection, and analytical reports monitoring progress. National and international civil society actors and the general public should be able to hold their government to account on the commitments made in the political declaration. They should be able to use the summit's outcomes for their advocacy at the national level. Finally, to achieve an ambitious political declaration in this difficult time of polarization, we would like to make a call to all stakeholders to maximize their impact by continue to building alliance across regional groups with international organizations, academia, and civil society. Let's arrive to Qatar with an ambitious agenda that address the social challenges of our time once and for all. Thank you very much.